The research vessel Stellar Hope moved slowly through space near Kepler Station. Inside the ship, 10 human students worked on their science projects. They were the first humans ever to study with alien species. Everyone on Earth was watching this historic moment. Minho Park bent over his computer, studying star patterns and gravity fields. At 22, he was one of the smartest students from Seoul National University. His fingers moved quickly across the holographic display as he calculated the distance between two distant suns. The math was complex, but Minho loved challenges that made his brain work hard. Across the lab, Jiun Lee carefully mixed different colored liquids in glass containers. She was studying how alien plants created energy from light. Her chemistry knowledge was impressive, and she had already discovered 3 new compounds that could help grow food on other planets. Jiun smiled as she watched the mixture turn bright green, exactly what her theory predicted would happen. The other 8 students were equally focused on their work. Sujin Han, the youngest at 19, was drawing detailed pictures of strange alien fish that lived in ammonia instead of water. Hyunwoo Choi was testing how different alien metals reacted to electricity. Each student represented the best of human curiosity and intelligence. Captain Dong-hyun Kim watched his young passengers with pride from the bridge. These students would return to Earth as the first humans to truly understand alien science. The knowledge they gained would help humanity take its place among the stars. Everything was going perfectly according to plan. The peaceful morning was shattered when alarms began screaming throughout the ship. Red warning lights flashed as the main screen showed dozens of massive alien warships surrounding them. The ships were dark gray with sharp angles, looking like giant metal sharks in the blackness of space. Captain Kim's hands flew over his controls, trying to understand what was happening. His ship carried no weapons and posed no threat to anyone. The students were on an approved mission that had taken months of careful diplomatic planning between Earth and the Galactic Council. The largest alien ship moved closer, its hull blocking out the stars. A communication signal crackled through the speakers, and suddenly a terrifying face appeared on the main screen. The creature had scales instead of skin, yellow eyes like a snake, and rows of sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical. "Human vessels, you are under detention for aggressive species assessment. Surrender immediately." Captain Kim stepped forward, his military training keeping him calm despite the fear growing in his chest. "This is Captain Dong-hyun Kim of the Stellar Hope. These are students on an approved academic mission. We have all the proper permits from the Galactic Council." The alien's yellow eyes narrowed with what looked like amusement. "I am Admiral Vex Thor of the Council Enforcement Fleet. Humanity's recent refusal to surrender your military ships has marked your species as potentially dangerous. These specimens will be studied to understand human aggressive tendencies." "These are children," Captain Kim shouted, his calm breaking. "Students here to learn, not soldiers." "All humans show the same violent patterns," Vexthor replied. "Your young will provide valuable data about your species' threat level." The students had gathered behind Captain Kim, their faces pale with fear. Minho put his arm around Sujin, who was trembling. Jiun grabbed Hyunwoo's hand as they watched more alien soldiers appear on the screen. Within minutes, the Stellar Hope was surrounded by boarding pods. Alien soldiers in black armor forced their way into the ship, carrying weapons that hummed with dangerous energy. The soldiers were the same reptilian species as Admiral Vex Thor, but larger and more frightening. Captain Kim tried to fight, but the alien's weapons sent waves of electricity through his body, dropping him to the floor. The students huddled together as the soldiers approached with glowing restraints. "Please," June whispered, "we just want to study and learn." The lead soldier tilted its scaled head. "You will be studied instead." One by one, the students were placed in restraints that made their arms and legs feel heavy and numb. Sujin began crying as she was separated from the others. Hyunwoo tried to comfort her, but a soldier pushed him away with the barrel of its weapon. Hours later, the 10 students found themselves in small metal cells aboard one of the alien warships. The walls were cold and smooth with no windows to see outside. Strange symbols glowed on the ceiling, providing dim light that hurt their eyes. Sujin sat in the corner of her cell, wiping tears from her face. Through the thin walls, she could hear Minho talking to the others, trying to keep their spirits up with jokes and stories about home. But his voice shook with worry. The ship jumped into hyperspace, and the students watched through tiny gaps in their cell doors as the stars stretched into long white lines. They were being taken far from Earth, far from everything they knew and loved. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Taemin Song stood in the emergency command center, reading the terrible message that had just arrived through diplomatic channels. The Galactic Council was holding 10 human students prisoner. The message was clear and threatening. Accept this as the price of joining galactic civilization, or face the consequences of defying the Council's authority. Around the table sat Earth's most important leaders, their faces grim with anger and determination. The room was silent except for the quiet hum of computers and the distant sound of military vehicles moving outside. President Boram-Yun slowly stood from her chair, her eyes burning with fury. Her voice was quiet but filled with steel. No human child remains in alien chains while Earth stands. The war was about to begin. The great meeting hall on Earth had never seen so many angry faces. Representatives from every nation sat together, their usual disagreements forgotten in the face of this terrible threat. Admiral Taemin Song walked to the center of the room, his military uniform crisp and his expression deadly serious. Behind him, massive screens showed pictures of the 10 captured students, their young faces smiling in happier times. They took our children, Admiral Song said, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent room. They called them dangerous specimens. They treat our brightest minds like animals in a zoo. The room erupted in shouts of anger. Fists pounded on tables as leaders from around the world demanded action. Admiral Song raised his hand and the noise slowly died down. Fleet Commander Jae-sung Park stood up from his seat in the front row. He was a veteran of the Mars Colony Wars, his face scarred from an explosion that had killed half his crew 20 years ago. Sir, the Pacific Fleet is ready. 47 warships, including 3 heavy destroyers. Commander So-young Kim joined him, her voice clear and strong. The European and African fleets have combined forces. 62 ships total, all equipped with our newest weapons systems. We can be ready to launch in 18 hours. Admiral Song nodded grimly. This would be the largest military force in human history, but they were heading into the unknown. Human ships had never fought against alien technology. They had no idea what weapons the Galactic Council possessed or how many ships they could bring to battle. Far across the galaxy, on the prison planet called Rigel Prime, the 10 students were learning that being captured did not mean being helpless. The alien prison was built like a research laboratory, with transparent walls that let the strange scientists watch their every move. But the aliens had made a mistake. They thought humans were just another primitive species to be studied and controlled. Minho Park pressed his hands against the glowing wall of his cell, feeling the energy that flowed through it. The wall was made of some kind of force field that created a barrier stronger than steel. But Minho was not just any student, he was a genius who understood physics better than most university professors. The energy pattern repeats every 12 seconds, he called out to the others through the thin walls. There's a weak point right after each pulse. In the next cell, Jun Lee was examining the strange food the aliens gave them. It looked like gray paste and tasted even worse, but Jun had trained herself to think like a scientist even in terrible situations. She scraped tiny samples onto her fingernail and studied them carefully. This isn't just food, she whispered to herself. They're putting chemicals in it, probably to make us weak and slow. She began to separate the paste into different parts, using techniques her chemistry professors had taught her. Woojin Lee sat in the corner of his cell, his eyes closed in concentration. To the watching aliens he looked like he was sleeping or perhaps scared into silence. But Woojin was actually listening to the prison's computer systems. Every electronic device made tiny sounds that most people could not hear, but Woojin had trained his ears to recognize different types of technology. The security system runs on quantum processors, he murmured quietly. But the interface protocols are based on binary logic. They're using old technology to control new systems. That's a weakness I can exploit. Yijin Choi watched the alien scientist through her transparent wall, her artist's eyes studying their movements and behavior. They're taking notes about everything we do, she whispered to the others. Every time we eat, sleep, or move they write it down. They're studying us like lab rats. The students were scattered in different cells, but Hyunwoo Choi's voice reached all of them. Even in this terrible place, he remained the natural leader who had organized study groups and helped students through difficult exams back on Earth. Listen to me all of you, Hyunwoo said, his voice calm and confident. They want to study us? Fine. Let's give them something to study. We're not just students anymore, we're Earth's representatives. Every single thing we do shows them what humanity is capable of. Sujin Han, the youngest, wiped tears from her eyes and straightened her shoulders. What do you want us to do? We learn everything we can about this place, Hyunwoo replied. Minho figures out their technology. Jiun analyzes their chemicals. Woojin hacks their computers. Everyone contributes what they know. When our people come to rescue us, and they will come, We'll be ready to help them. Back on Earth, Admiral Song was discovering that humanity was not completely alone in the galaxy. In his private office, he received a message that made his heart beat faster with hope. The holographic image of an alien appeared above his desk, but this one looked nothing like the Reptilian Council forces. This creature was tall and covered in golden fur, with proud eyes and a bearing that reminded Song of the ancient samurai warriors of Japan. "I am Commander Kethvar of the Kethtar warrior fleet," the alien said in carefully spoken human language. "We have heard of your species' loyalty to your young. This is a quality we respect above all others. Our ships will stand with you against the Council's tyranny." Another message arrived within the hour, this one from a species that looked like living starlight shaped into humanoid form. "We are the Luminari," the being said, its voice like music. "We have watched the Council's growing cruelty with great concern. Your brave response has convinced us to act. Our technology is at your disposal." Captain Dong-hyun Kim entered Admiral Song's office, his face bruised but his spirit unbroken. The Council forces had released him as unimportant, not realizing he had spent hours memorizing every detail of their prison ship. "Sir," Captain Kim said, placing a data pad on the desk. "I have the location of Rigel Prime and complete intelligence on their prison facility's defenses. Our students are alive, and if I know them, they're already planning something." Admiral Song smiled for the first time since the crisis began. The clock showed exactly 3 in the morning when Major Sung-ho Jang gave the silent hand signal to his team. 12 of the most elite soldiers in human history moved through the darkness of space, their ships invisible to enemy sensors. The Ghost Squadron had trained for months for this mission, but nothing could prepare them for what they were about to face. Their ships were marvels of combined technology. Human engineers had worked day and night with Kethtar scientists to create stealth systems that bent light around the vessels, making them disappear completely. The ships moved like shadows through the asteroid field that surrounded Rigel Prime, dodging floating rocks the size of mountains. Major Jang pressed his face against the small window of his fighter, watching the prison planet grow larger ahead of them. Somewhere down there, 10 human students were waiting for rescue. The Major had studied their files until he knew each face by heart. They were just kids who wanted to learn about the universe, and now they were trapped in an alien prison. Far below on the planet's surface, those same students had not been sitting around feeling sorry for themselves. Minho Park had spent weeks studying the energy patterns that flowed through the prison walls. Every night, when the alien guards thought the humans were sleeping, Minho pressed his ear against the wall and listened to the electrical hum. "The power grid has a fatal flaw," Minho whispered to Jiun in the next cell. "All the energy flows through one central point. If I can create the right sound frequency, I can make the whole system overload and shut down." Jiun had been just as busy with her own project. The gray paste they called food was disgusting, but it contained exactly the chemicals she needed. Using her fingernails as tiny tools and her hair tie as a filter, she had slowly separated different compounds from their meals. "I've been testing these chemicals on the small insects in my cell," Jiun told the others during their daily exercise time. "The mixture I created makes them fall asleep instantly. It should work on our reptilian guards too, since they have similar nervous systems." Woojin Lee had been the busiest of all. While pretending to be a scared prisoner, he had actually been listening to every electronic sound in the prison. The aliens used complex quantum computers, but they controlled them with simple binary codes that Woojin understood perfectly. "I've mapped their entire digital network," Woojin said quietly. "Security cameras, door locks, communication systems, I can control all of it when the time comes." The alien scientists watching them had no idea what the humans were planning. To them, the students looked defeated and harmless. The reptilian creatures took notes about human behavior, writing reports about how easily humans could be controlled through fear and isolation. But Hyunwoo Choi knew better. As the group's natural leader, he could see the determination growing stronger in each of his friends every day. They were not broken prisoners, they were angry humans who were ready to fight back. "Tonight," Hyunwoo said during their evening meal, speaking so quietly that the alien microphones could not hear him. "Minho, are you ready?" Minho nodded, his hand steady despite his racing heart. He had calculated the exact frequency needed to overload the prison's power systems. All he needed was the metal spoon from his dinner tray and the right timing. At exactly 0330, Minho began tapping his spoon against the wall in a precise rhythm. To the guards, it probably sounded like a nervous habit. But the sound waves traveled through the prison structure, building in intensity until they reached the central power core. The lights flickered once, then twice, then went out completely. Emergency power kicked in for a few seconds before dying as well. The entire prison was plunged into darkness. "Now we show them what human students can really do," Hyunwoo said with a grim smile that nobody could see in the blackness. The cell doors, controlled by the same electrical system, swung open with soft clicks. Jiun moved quickly through the darkness, her hands finding the unconscious guards who had collapsed when she spread her chemical compound through the air vents. She took their weapons and key cards, passing them to the other students. Sujin Han, despite being the youngest, showed incredible bravery as she ran through the prison corridors. She found other prisoners, aliens from dozens of different species who had been locked up for questioning the Council's authority. Many of them had been imprisoned for months or even years. "We're escaping," Sujin told them in simple galactic trade language. "Come with us if you want freedom." Meanwhile, Woojin had found the prison's main computer terminal. His fingers flew across the alien keyboard as he accessed communication systems across multiple star systems. Within minutes, he was broadcasting the truth about the Council's secret prison program to planets throughout the galaxy. "Citizens of the galaxy," Woojin's voice echoed across space. "This is the truth your Council has hidden from you. They imprison innocent beings for the crime of thinking freely. Today that ends." Major Jang and his rescue team arrived to find the prison in complete chaos. The students had not only freed themselves but had started a revolution. Alien guards ran in panic as their prisoners escaped in every direction. "This way," Hyunwoo called out, leading his fellow students toward the landing pad where human ships waited. But their escape was not going to be easy. High above the planet, Admiral Vexthor's massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace, their weapons charging for battle. On the bridge of the great dreadnought Unbreakable, Admiral Song watched the enemy ships approach. His own fleet was outnumbered 3-1, but his heart was filled with determination. Vexthor's angry face appeared on the communication screen. "You dare challenge the Galactic Council? Your primitive species will be crushed for this insult." Admiral Song's reply was calm and cold as ice. "We dare protect our children. Something your council seems to have forgotten how to do." The first shots of the war lit up the darkness of space like deadly fireworks. The first explosion lit up space like a dying star. Admiral Song's ship fired its main guns at the Council fleet, and the battle that would change galactic history began. For thousands of years, the galaxy had known peace under Council rule. But that peace was built on fear, and now the fear was breaking apart. Human warships moved in ways that confused the alien commanders. The Council expected orderly battle lines and predictable attacks, like they had seen in their ancient wars. Instead, human ships darted around like angry wasps, attacking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the aliens could respond. Fleet Admiral Jae-sung Park commanded the Second Fleet from his flagship Thunder's Edge. His scarred face was calm as he watched the battle unfold on dozens of screens around him. Park had learned warfare fighting pirates in the outer colonies, where every battle meant survival or death. "Enemy fleet is maintaining formation," his tactical officer reported. "They're trying to overwhelm us with concentrated firepower." Park smiled grimly. "Then we'll show them why formations don't work against humans. Signal the fleet execute pincer movement Alpha." The human ships suddenly split into two groups, racing around the sides of the Council formation like sharks circling their prey. The alien commanders tried to turn their massive ships to follow, but human vessels were smaller and faster. By the time the Council ships had turned around, the humans were already behind them, firing at their weak rear sections. Admiral So-young Kim was leading her fighter squadrons in a completely different part of the battle. Her small ships moved like dancers, swooping in to attack and then vanishing into asteroid fields before the enemy could respond. The Council had never faced hit-and-run tactics like these before. "Wolfpack 3 target their communication array," Kim ordered through her helmet radio. "Wolfpack 7 take out their shield generators. Make them blind and defenseless." Her pilots whooped with excitement as they dove toward the enormous Council battleship. Human fighters were tiny compared to the alien vessel, like flies attacking an elephant. But flies could get into places elephants could not defend, and each small attack weakened the giant ship a little more. The Council's rigid battle formations crumbled under the chaos of human unpredictability. Their commanders had studied warfare for centuries, but all their knowledge was useless against an enemy that refused to fight by the rules. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On 100 different worlds, oppressed peoples watched the broadcasts and felt hope for the first time in generations. The mighty Galactic Council was not invincible after all. The rescued students became heroes throughout known space. Their faces appeared on news broadcasts and resistance propaganda across dozens of star systems. But the students themselves were not satisfied with being symbols, they wanted to help win the war. Minho Park worked 18 hours a day with Earth's best engineers, designing new weapon systems that used physics principles the Council had never encountered. His understanding of energy patterns, learned while escaping from prison, helped create shield-piercing missiles that could punch through any defense. The key is harmonic resonance, Minho explained to a room full of older scientists and generals. Every shield has a natural frequency. If we can match that frequency with our weapons, we can make their own defenses work against them. Jiun Li had set up a laboratory where she developed chemical countermeasures against Council technology. Her knowledge of alien biochemistry, combined with samples she had smuggled out of the prison, led to breakthrough discoveries about Council weaknesses. Their hull plating contains organic compounds, Jiun told the research team. I've created an acid that specifically targets those compounds. It won't hurt humans or our allies, but it will eat through Council ship armor like water through paper. The war grew larger every day as more species joined the human-led coalition. The proud Kethtar warriors fought alongside human destroyers, their golden ships moving in perfect formation with the smaller human vessels. The two species had very different fighting styles, but they both understood the importance of honor and protecting the innocent. Commander Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching human and Kethtar ships work together in battle. Your species fights with the fury of cornered predators, he told Admiral Song during a strategy meeting. It is a quality we admire greatly. The peaceful Luminari provided advanced shield technology that made human ships nearly impossible to destroy. Their energy-based forms could merge temporarily with human computer systems, creating hybrid defenses that confused Council weapons completely. Even species that had been hiding for generations began to emerge from their secret colonies. The insectoid Vri had been oppressed by the Council for so long that many aliens thought they were extinct. But when human ships arrived at their hidden world, millions of Vri warriors swarmed into space, their anger at centuries of persecution burning like fire. President Boram Yun stood before representatives of 50 different species in the Great Assembly Hall on Earth. Behind her, screens showed battles raging across the galaxy as the coalition fought to free world after world from Council control. We didn't start this war, President Yun said, her voice carrying to every corner of the packed room. But we will finish it. Not for conquest or domination, but for the simple right of every species to determine its own fate. No more tyrants. No more fear. Only freedom. The crowd erupted in cheers that could be heard in dozens of different languages. Humans, Kethtar, Luminari, Vri, and many other species stood together, united by their shared desire for freedom. Admiral Vexthor watched his empire crumbling from the command center of his flagship. His mighty fleet was scattered across dozens of star systems, fighting desperate battles against enemies who seemed to multiply every day. These primitive humans had done something the Council thought impossible. They had united half the galaxy against Council rule. How many more systems have rebelled? Vexthor asked his aide, his yellow eyes burning with frustrated rage. 17 more just declared independence, Admiral. Our forces are spread too thin to maintain control. Vexthor's claws scraped against his command chair. The war that was supposed to last days was now entering its 6th month, and the Council was losing. The final battle above Centralis Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Hundreds of ships from dozens of different species moved together like a massive storm of metal and energy, all focused on the gleaming capital world of the Galactic Council. Admiral Song stood on the bridge of his flagship Unbreakable, watching as the combined fleet approached the planet's defensive stations. For thousands of years, these massive space fortresses had protected the Council's home world. They were built like metal moons, each one larger than most cities, covered with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. But today they faced something new, species working together as equals instead of master and slave. All ships, this is Admiral Song, he spoke into his communication device. Today we end tyranny forever. Fight with honor, fight for freedom, and fight for the future of every child in the galaxy. The response came back in dozens of different languages. Kethtar warriors roared their battle cries. Luminari beings hummed in harmony. Human pilots shouted encouragement to each other. Even the insectoid Vri clicked their mandibles in rhythm, creating a sound like metallic thunder. The battle began with a coordinated assault that the Council's computers could not predict or stop. Human ships used their chaotic tactics, darting between the defensive stations like angry bees. Kethtar cruisers formed disciplined attack formations, their golden hulls gleaming as they fired precision strikes at weak points. Luminari vessels became pure energy, flowing around enemy weapons like living light. One by one, the great defensive stations fell silent. Their weapons stopped firing, their lights went dark, and their massive structures began to drift powerlessly in space. The Council's last line of defense was broken. On the planet's surface, panic filled the streets of the capital city. For the first time in centuries, Council leaders felt the fear that they had used to control others for so long. Some tried to escape in hidden ships, but coalition forces were waiting for them. Others barricaded themselves in underground bunkers, hoping to wait out the storm. Admiral Vex Thor refused to surrender. His flagship was the largest and most powerful ship in the Council fleet, armed with weapons that could crack planets in half. He gathered his most loyal officers around him, their reptilian faces twisted with desperate rage. "We will show these primitives what real power looks like," Vex Thor hissed through his sharp teeth. "Charge all weapons. Target their command ship. We will kill their admiral and watch their alliance crumble." But Vex Thor had forgotten something important about humans: they were very good at boarding enemy ships. While his attention was focused on the large battle outside, Major Sung-Ho Jang and his elite Marines were cutting through the hull of his flagship like invisible ghosts. The Marines moved through the ship's corridors with deadly efficiency. They had trained for months to fight in alien environments, learning to breathe recycled air and move in artificial gravity different from Earth's. Each Marine carried weapons designed specifically to work against reptilian nervous systems, based on research done by Ji-Eun Lee during her imprisonment. Explosions echoed through the flagship as the Marines fought their way toward the command deck. Council soldiers tried to stop them, but human military tactics were too unpredictable. The aliens expected frontal attacks and formal battles. Instead, they faced soldiers who appeared from air vents, attacked through floor panels, and disappeared into shadows before anyone could respond. Major Jang reached the command deck first, his weapon trained on Admiral Vex Thor as the alien commander spun around in surprise. Behind Jang, 12 more Marines spread out to cover every exit, their faces hidden behind combat helmets that made them look like metal demons. "Your council falls today," Major Jang declared, his voice calm despite the chaos of battle around them. Admiral Vex Thor drew himself up to his full height, trying to look intimidating even with human weapons pointed at his chest. "You cannot rule the galaxy," he hissed. "You primitive creatures lack the wisdom and authority to govern civilized species." Major Jang smiled behind his helmet, though the alien could not see it. "We're not here to rule. We're here to free." Those words spread across the galaxy faster than the news of military victory. The coalition had not come to conquer, they had come to liberate. This was not about replacing one tyrant with another, but about ending tyranny forever. The surrender came not through total destruction, but through exhaustion and realization. Council member worlds, seeing their leaders defeated and their fleets scattered, chose negotiation over continued destruction. Representatives from hundreds of planets sent messages asking for peace talks and the chance to join the new government being formed. 6 months later, the first assembly of the new Galactic Federation took place on Earth. The Great Meeting Hall had been expanded to hold representatives from over 50 different species. Beings of every imaginable shape and size sat together, united by their shared desire for freedom and equality. Minho Park, now wearing the formal robes of Ambassador Park, stood at the center of the hall. Beside him were his fellow former prisoners Jiun, Hyunwoo, Sujin, and all the others who had started this revolution simply by refusing to give up hope. They captured 10 students to study human aggression, Ambassador Park said to the crowd, his voice carrying clearly through translation devices. Instead, they learned what human compassion can accomplish when combined with the courage of free peoples everywhere. The hall erupted in cheers that lasted for nearly 10 minutes. Beings who had been enemies for centuries were now applauding together, their differences forgotten in the face of shared victory. President Bo-Ram Yoon, now elected as the first leader of the Galactic Federation, stepped forward to conclude the ceremony. Her words would be remembered and repeated for generations to come. "Today begins an age where no species kneels before another," she declared. "Today the galaxy learns to stand together as equals, as friends and as family." Behind the stage, a memorial wall displayed a simple message written in over 100 different languages, in memory of those who dared to hope for freedom, and those who dared to fight for it. The age of tyranny was over. The age of freedom had begun.